Welcome to the Hustle and Flow podcast.
A platform we use to explore varying perspectives and opinion through candid conversation.
We chat about philosophy, business, and all things life. I'm Shaun the Hustle.
And I'm Les the Flow.
Let's go. All right, mate. So my turn for a topic today. And it's one that could go in a lot of directions, but something that's come up for me recently that I've been just thinking about, which comes up from time to time, but really something that's been coming up a lot for me lately, and that's knowing versus doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, man, I thought we'd talk about that today, see where we go, the differences between them and where we get to on that.
Give us some context, man. Why is this one been swinging around for you as of late?
I think so. Like, personally, I've been making progress on things much faster these days, which is awesome, and I'm very happy about that. But I think the main driver of that is actually doing things versus quote unquote knowing what to do and then actually going ahead and doing it. And I've been hearing people say a lot lately when you have conversations with them, they're like, oh, I know, but they're not doing what they know, right? And then they're in these positions that they don't want to be in, or situations that, aren't favorable towards them. And then they ask for advice, not just of me, of different people. It's something that you come across a lot when people have conversations with people and just vent or talk to them about things. And then they ask for advice or someone offers it. And the person always inevitably goes, oh, I know. Like, I know.
Yeah.
It's like, if you know, what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
You're clearly not doing something about it, which is why you're in this situation. That's why you have that reaction or that response of, I know. And if you know better, you can do better, right? It's something that we talk about a lot and preach because it's the truth. If you know better, you can do better, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that for most of us, and myself included, by no means have I, completely overcome this, affliction of knowing and not doing. Not by any means. There's still a lot of things that, quote unquote, I know, but I don't do. Things that you know are good for you that you don't do. Things that you actually should be doing that you're not doing. Things that could be better if you approach them in a different way, but you're not taking that approach. And I think that's interesting, and I want to unpack why you think that is, and let's go from there.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from a very, practical angle, I think, when the doing and the result of doing is a tangible outcome, right? And I think that's where, for the most part, we can talk to, and I think that's where you're coming from, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like a very, standard mode of operation for people, and a very easy way for us to look at things. Like, I guess when we're thinking about the standard mode of production and efficiency and not procrastinating and just doing things and getting things done, I think it works. But then it's interesting on the other hand where there are ways that you can look at this this notion of doing and also knowing that you need to do, but nothing quote unquote tangible actually is produced, but you are still doing and you still know that you are doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's like an interesting wrinkle in the conversation as well.
Yep, and a good distinction to make, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about physically doing things or in terms of getting a tangible result or a physical result for something. There's plenty of things that we do that aren't tangible and things that we want to achieve that aren't.
Yeah.
Right. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because I always reflect back to like the deepest work that I do, and it's just meditation and like inner work, right? And that sort of work that I do, there isn't necessarily going to be like a tangible outcome for me that I can physically show to people per se, right? But it's not ever going to be like a clear distinction of I've done it, so the outcome is there. It's always like a subtle emergence over time.
Yeah. And I think it's like linkages, right? You do that work, which helps you in other ways that may manifest into tangible results somewhere else.
Totally.
But I get what you're saying. You can't link that work that you're doing and that you're actually doing and having a result for yourself or an intangible result, and then you can't really relay that. It's hard, right? It's hard to say, like, my meditation's working. Like, how would you say that?
Yeah, I mean,
Or how would you prove that, rather,
Yeah.
to someone that they'd understand?
that's it. So like in those instances, like I certainly know and I certainly do, but the outcome may not be something that, you know, meets that criteria of a physical or tangible outcome that can show like a result that, you know, proves something. But you know, it's just one of those things. I reflect back on like some recent work that I've been doing. Just I've been like shifting some like paradigms in my mind as to how I view certain things and time, for instance, and that is something that is moving through me all the time. You know, as I, you know, quote unquote work through it and do the work through meditation and introspective practice. But what is that, you know, actually producing for me? I'm not quite sure, but I know that there is, you know, this need to work on it because it has been a crutch for me, you know, in the past. It's old conditioning that needs to be shaken up and dispelled, you know. That's all I know. And when is the point when it is actually dispelled and no longer a crutch? I'm not sure. It comes and goes, you know. Mm-hmm. Some moments I feel, you know, I have power over it, and others vice versa. But I think it's a consistent, you know, practice of doing in this respect.
Yeah, for sure. And there's that saying, right? It's all in the doing. And I think there's credence to that. No matter if it's like what you're doing, the doing is what actually gets you to the next part, right? And it also talks to the concept of presence. Like, you can only be doing in the present, right? And what we do in the present time is what actually dictates our future. So that's one thing, you know, we have been talking about a lot lately, as well as time and the concept of time. It's come up a lot for us in different episodes, different people we've talked to between ourselves, and the concept of time, right? And the past, the present, and the future. And it really has dawned on me of late that the present is where it's at. I've always been someone who's projecting to the future, but once the penny drops for you that your future is created through the doing in the present, or just being present and whatever you're doing now, and those moments are what stack on each other to determine your future, you start to really understand that the present is where it's at. And in the present is coming back to what we're talking about, like knowing and doing. In the present is where we can actually do, right? And how we operate in the present moment, projecting into our future and forming our future. That's the one thing that's interesting to me in the knowing and doing, is because if we just know and don't do anything, there's no movement, right? There's no movement either way of where you're going. You're pretty much going to be static, right? Or you're going to actually spend that time just knowing and dwelling in the past, not reflecting, big distinction, right? Just dwelling and stopping yourself from doing things in the present that aren't going to actually help you move anyway in the future when you're hoping to move forward generally, right? So that's the thing for me when I think about, you know, just knowing things or thinking that you know things and intellectualizing or just keeping it there but not actually taking any action or doing anything about it, right? Like your meditation practice, right? Coming back to that. You are doing it every day. Whether there's some tangible result that other people can see or not, right? You know for a fact that it's working. You know that it's going to have a benefit for you, but then you're doing it. You're actually physically taking the time to meditate, go through your process, right? And seeing what comes of it. Only then can you actually experience the after effects, or the benefit, or, you know, whatever it is that you're going to feel or experience. It's after you do the meditation. I'm one of those people, right? Like, I know I should meditate, but do I do it regularly? No, I don't. right? And that's the difference, is because I can tell from yourself and other people that I know that do meditate consistently, there's a difference in the way that you operate and you think. There is. That's noticeable. To me, it's noticeable, right? There's a different energy. There's a different flow there. There is. And that's the part that's interesting to me, right? Is like, I know, but I don't do it. And that's what's really intriguing to me about the knowing versus doing. And there's nothing wrong. Like, I'm not trying to say that doing is better than knowing, because you actually have to know at some point in order to do. And you have to know what to do and what you want to do, right? So you have to take the time and work out what you want and actually, take in information, wisdom, knowledge, synthesize it to actually do something. That part's important. I'm not saying that knowing is not important. It's very important. But I think the real value in knowing comes from doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess just to touch on the meditation example once more, I guess the quote unquote tangible result is, how I operate and exude that into the world.
Yeah.
I suppose,
Yeah, totally. Which is a very noticeable thing, as I said, right?
Yeah. So I want to talk to this notion of knowing and doing because you spoke about presence, right? And presence is, and we talk about like moments in time, the present moment. And I think that this is a very important way to think about it. And it might be a little bit, it might come across as a little bit confusing, but let's talk about it, right? So in the context of presence, the way you explained, a knowing of, these stages of time, past, present, and future, and recognizing that the present is realistically the only reality, The past we've talked about before, and the future are mental projections, one way or another, right, on this linear time spectrum. And the presence is now, is the only reality that we live. And to know it is just to know that, right? But the doing in that is to experience every moment. That is the to do. Like every nanosecond, every single micro moment that we live right now, even for us right now as we speak to each other, right? To do the moment is to experience the moment, right? And to not experience the moment is to think about it, to intellectualize it. So what do I mean by to do or to experience the moment? So as we're talking now, whatever we're feeling as these words are coming up through me, as I'm looking at you, we're having a conversation. We're having a verbal conversation as well as like a physical conversation, in the sense that, you are sensing my energy, vice versa, You're understanding or, digesting what I'm talking about. And that is moving through you in some way. And the words are coming through as I'm just, feeling this moment. And like I've got, there's other, sensory stimulus around as well. I'm sitting down, I've got a pen in my hand, and a notepad, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of experiencing happening every single moment. And to actually do in the moment is simply to just experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like, if you think about that, like you have to break it down into very small pieces, Every present moment is like, it goes like this, It's there and it's gone. So if you're not, like, the conscious effort needs to continually be there for us to do in every single moment. And like we talk about all the time, we always have the choice at every single moment, whether to experience it or not, and like it's like this notion of, enlightenment, right? That it's not really a place that you can get to where you simply get there and then every moment is the present moment and you are able to fully and completely experience it, It's a conscious effort at every moment.
Yeah.
Like enlightenment that's enlightenment, right? It's there and it's gone. If you, again, are not conscious and focused and actively trying to do and experience, then you recede back. Then you come back to, just intellectualizing and thinking.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, right? Like everything you've just explained, for me, it boils down to being in the moment or not. For me, they're essentially the two modes, right? You're present or you're not.
Yeah.
You're in the moment or you're not. And you don't have to actually be in the moment every moment. That's not what I'm trying to say anyway, bro. It's not about like every single moment feeling every breeze on your cheek and feeling every single letter you write.
Well, that's probably not like possible either.
No, it's not. And the fact and utility of life is that we actually do need to project into the future in order to work out what decisions we make right now for what actions we take in the present moment to move towards that future, right? And the past is just other experiences we've had and moments in time that we've chosen to act upon or not that are now in our memory file. And then we attach some meaning to it, and then that forms a memory for us and an emotional connection, and then we carry that forward and use all of that to make decisions going forward. And that dictates whether we do things or not, right? Like if you have an experience in the moment where you're super fucking scared, if you think that's going to happen to you again, right? Or you come up against that exact situation again, you're going to remember that. That's why your memory is useful and your past is useful, right? And when you're in the moment again, right? You're about to experience it again. You can use that past knowledge that you've gained or wisdom from doing something or not of how to move forward and eventuate a future that you want to be a part of, right? So past is definitely important. I also want to make it clear that like I'm not shitting on the past. In so many episodes I've talked about like I don't really care about the past, and I don't care about the past per se, but I do care about the lessons and things I've learned from the experiences I've had, right? When I've actually taken the time to reflect upon it instead of just thinking about that thing and not actually taking a lesson from it. But we use that information to do something now, again, in the present, right? To take us forward. And coming back to you're either in the moment or not, right? Again, the mental projection in the future and thinking about it is important. We all generally have somewhere we want to get to, or we think we want to get to, and we're working towards that. My point is just in the moment is where you're actually going to make that happen or not. What we do right now is whether that reality you want to shape or to come into being is going to happen or not based on your actions and your decisions now. That's why now is important, right? And from someone who was constantly just projecting into the future and intellectualizing, just thinking, I procrastinated on shit so fucking much, man. Like so much. I would just think about what could happen there. What's this? I would never fucking write anything down. I would just keep that shit on loop. And what that resulted in was not doing anything in the present moment. And then I wouldn't get the reality that I wanted to shape, or I wouldn't arrive there, right? It's not about getting it. It's about turning up in that next spot or arriving there, right? And things just came together and it clicked for me, and you get advice from other people. You see what other people are doing, and it really is in the doing. Some things are just as simple as that. If you do something now, you can have something different. If you do nothing now, the chances are it's going to be nothing different, right? Or it might be worse, actually, because you haven't taken action on something that perhaps you should have taken action on.
Well, think of it this way as well. Like you spoke about, most people would, have some sort of ambition or desire to quote unquote be somewhere. And I think generally that is true, right? And I think generally as humans we have ambition. That's like from a general sense. But then if you apply this lens of saying that if we know, and we clearly know, firstly, that whatever action that we, perform in the present moment is going to be towards something in the future, and we feel good about that action in the moment, that it's going to create that something, then conversely, really, then is there even a need to project if we simply know that being present and doing in the present moment is going to yield us what we innately want?
I think there's definitely value in projecting, personally, because it's like a target, right? And to be able to talk about, it's like if you've got no destination, no map's going to help you because you're just going to be wandering, really. Whereas if you've got a destination, a set point that you want to arrive at, you can start to work out how to get there. What are your options? If you decide to actually walk in the opposite direction, you're not going to turn up there. That's an important part too, right? That we can be doing things in the present that are actually going to take us further away from where we want to be. And that's where our assessment and, decision-making process is important. It's not just like, just be in the moment now. Do what you feel like. Don't think about anything. That's not what I'm trying to say, right? And I know it's not what you are trying to say either. I just think it's important to point that out. But it's that's why I think projecting into the future, having a strategy, I guess, that you're working towards, that's important. But right now is what matters, right? It's like, think about things like even massive things like wars and battles and things like that, right? There's outcomes that people want to achieve, but they're large. They're going to take a long time to get to. There's, infinite paths you could take, and there's, hundreds, thousands of outcomes that could happen, and different effects, and there's different people affected. There's so many parameters. But if you have that in mind, where you want to travel to. And then from that, now we need to decide what's important right now. What are we going to do right now that's going to move us towards that?
Yeah.
Right? Because if a war breaks out, you're not just going to win the war tomorrow, right? There's hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of battles that need to happen. Big ones, small ones, between plenty of people or powers and one-on-one. But if you know where you're going and what the outcome is, right, you can work towards that outcome and make decisions now that are going to help. Like, I need to win this battle now. I need to beat this person in front of me now. Or I need to work out a way to move around this obstacle now. I need to get to that next point. So then I can get to the next one and the next one and hopefully arrive where I want to be.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like in this sort of space, you're right. It's for me, it's neither one way or another, right? In terms of projecting, for me that has this connotation of crystallizing something at the end, which I don't do. So for me, I don't know whether I actually project too far into the future or it's just that I don't draw hard lines for my projection, basically, right? It's a very loose sort of, it's more of a feeling, right? It just like when you for me, when you define something, you cage it, right? I don't do that with how I project forward. So I understand what you're saying, and for me, that light that guides me, whatever that light is that we use to walk towards, it's really actually inside me, right? And to me, it's just the destination, if you want to call it that, and even calling it that seems not appropriate for me, but anyway, we'll use it for the sake of the conversation. If we say it's a destination, and even that destination, it's just like to come to a point of like knowing myself at the purest form, you know. And for me, as long as I continue to, you know, do and experience in the present moment with that sincerity of discovering more about myself in mind, then I know wherever I'm going to, you know, end up is going to be where the most fulfilling for me, you know. So like it's so blurry, this projection, but I guess it's there.
Yep.
Like what pops up along the way is almost a mystery, but at the same time, when it comes, it's just like, of course,
Yeah.
you know. So I don't know, like this is for me, it's just like a semantic thing.
Yep.
And also at the same time, like not seeing it like how it's popularized,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of this goal setting and all that sort of shit, right? Like I understand the utility of this stuff for sure, 100%. But at the same time, like I don't want to diminish like the truth, you know, and the power of simply letting go and surrendering to what is, and just, you know, trusting that, you know. I don't want to diminish that at all.
Yep. And I understand that. And I guess like it comes down to your notions of what you can control and what you can't. And that's different for every person, right? For me, I've always been like someone who tried to control everything. And when you keep doing that and you keep running into scenarios where things don't turn out how you want, right? You realize it's your desire to control things and then that not eventuating that is putting you in a spot of discomfort or unease, right? And it's one of those like woo-woo things that's like, you know, letting go, or, you know, don't try to control things that are out of your control. On the flip of that, there are actually a lot of things that we can control. Sometimes I think people use those euphemisms or those expressions to kind of abdicate responsibility.
Yep.
Right? Because it's easier to do that.
Yep.
But there is real truth in those statements and those ideas and just realities, right? That like there's certain things you just can't control, and you need to surrender in those moments. And what's going to be is going to be. But then what you do going forward from there is what you can control. Our reaction, how we view it, how we move forward, what meaning we attach to whatever experience we have. We can control that part. And I think it's more so about like not trying to control everything, but just controlling the aspects that we can control.
Yeah, for sure. You know? And like 100%, it's not.
I think that's still important.
Yeah,
just to throw that out, you know?
100%. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, like everyone knows, like responsibility is always of highest regard and importance for me, right? And that sense of sovereignty is what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
It needs to be
And you're making choices every moment to be who you want to be, and you're choosing to surrender. That's another thing, right? You're choosing to let go.
And that's an action in itself as well.
It is.
Right? That's a conscious action.
Yeah, you're doing that. Yeah. You're doing that. And that's the thing, right? Is like we always have this positive and negative connotation on things just in wider society. And it's not like that. It's just not like that, right? And, you know, like for you, you said goal setting stuff, you see the utility in it, right? But for you, it's other things take priority for you. They're more important. And you get to where you're wanting to go using different methods, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I always have like a very clear goal set. I've realized now, though, that there's a lot along that path that I don't control trying to get there. And so there are parts, you know, things I just need to let go. I just need to let go at certain points and wait for something to happen, right? Or do whatever I can to try and move as close as I can towards that. But then other people need to do things. Other people that I interact with, there's other things happening around, you know, like in this environment we're in that I can't control. That will dictate what happens next, and then what I'm able to do next or what I'm not able to do next, and whether I decide to move in a certain way or not, right? But for me, it also comes to that point of like, you mentioned like your truth and knowing yourself, right? Whereas for me, I look at things in terms of like, you just choose who you want to be, and then you do what you can to become that, right? That's how I walk through life. And there's a lot of hard work involved in that, and you also need to let go of certain things to do that. But for me, it's like that, and that's why goals are important to me, right? Like clear goals, because it's like there's I guess like an archetype in my mind of who I want to be. There's virtues that I have that I work towards. I have in my mind and in my heart, like when I really think about and feel about like who I want to be, and then I'm like, that's who I want to be. I choose that, right? And there's things within myself that I don't like. Anyone who says there isn't, I think is full of shit, right? And there definitely are. And they're things that I want to change, right? So I want to be someone different to that part. So I'm just simply choosing who I want to be and then working towards that. But just thinking about it is one thing. Then I've got to do all these things to work towards that. I've got to do this inner work, right? That's not so tangible.
Yeah.
But then there's other things that I want to achieve and experience in this physical world that we have, right? And things that are important to me that I want to put in place that require very physical actions.
Yeah. And I think like you and I, we're just really taking different approaches to the same thing realistically. And I think we describe it in different
Yeah.
ways, but that's fine as well.
We just,
Right.
I think, both want to actualize into the truest form of ourselves that we are comfortable with and feel internally, like inner, that's who we are and want to be, and being able to express that.
And I think either way, right? Either way, I think, like I said, like this is the dynamic that we hold. We take different approaches to things, but both of them are we're both trying to do things, right? We're trying to consciously, bring these things into, manifestation, whichever approach that we choose to take, which we're both comfortable with, right? We're each comfortable with. You have, a clear model of what your like archetypal, person is like, and I feel as if there's like almost a unbecoming to reveal who I am, right? But they both take an extreme amount of work and dedication, and they're difficult. That this is change. This is evolution. Without difficulty, without struggle and suffering, you're not going to get where you want to get.
No, you're not. And there's things that you need to drop, things that need to be taken off, and things that you need to add, things that we need to slap onto ourselves, right? And then grow and build. And it just depends on who we are, how we choose to walk through life, and who we want to be. That determines what we drop and what we add, right?
Yeah, and I guess we can circle back to this question, or this curious sense of behavior that of knowing something is beneficial for us, but then at the same time not acting. Like I think like the classic and most relatable example to anyone is just like good nutrition and exercise, right? I would say that you can generally say that everyone knows what is good for you in those two regards, in terms of like health and wellness. Like you have to exercise regularly and you have to eat well for the most part. But you'll know that, like, of course, people still eat poorly because you can just see it by what's out there on the market available to us. Without the demand, there wouldn't be the supply, right? But there is like a shitload of junk out there. Like I call them food products because it's not actually food. It's all synthetic stuff that is being created in some factory or lab. And we consume it, and it's not good for us. And we can talk about these things and how it correlates to these diseases of affluence, and before this mass production of food products, there wasn't such thing as heart disease and cancer and all these sorts of things, right? It was very few and far between. It just skyrocketed from the 50s. But people know, and they've known for a long time, yet we still choose or don't choose.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, man, you've hit the nail on the head for me. It's like, when I think about it, this whole thing of knowing things and then not, like, knowing something that's good for you or beneficial for you and then not doing it, it comes down to your priorities, and a lot of times ones that you haven't thought about or really consciously thought about. And that leads you into automatic choices or conscious choices. And really, like, a lack of conscious choice, right? It's like you place your importance on something which makes you make decisions that might be counter to the thing that you know is good for you, all right? You might, place more importance on hanging out with certain people. And what they do is they go out drinking and eating fast food all the time. And that's what they do. And having a connection with those people is what's important to you. And you think that the food and the drink is what actually brings you guys together and connects you. So if you stop doing that, you're not going to be able to have this connection. So the choice you're going to make in the moment is go out with them, eat the junk food, drink, right? Even though you know that's not good for your body. It's just not, right? Categorically. So I think that's what it is. But where I think it gets interesting is people generally don't stop to think about what it is that they value.
Yep.
And that's the key for me. Because when you actually take that time to figure out what you value and why you value it, and then start to understand why there may be things that you haven't thought about yet, but now you're starting to unpack and uncover that you value and figure out why you value them, you might decide that you want to do different, right? And then you can actually do different and do better. And that's the thing. I think it's, this this affliction that we all have in this modern world, not all of us, but like a lot of us have in this modern world of, just running, just going with what feels right in the moment, but not actually taking stock and trying to understand things.
Well, this is the way I put it, and I agree with you with everything that you said, but also I would say that I think as humans, we're so used to, thinking and intellectualizing these things and understanding these things on a logical and rational level that we don't take a moment to really we actually, we take for granted, but we also need to stop and give ourselves, a break with this stuff and giving ourselves a hard time in essence. Because if you think about it, if we peel back the layer of cognition, we are animals, instinctual animals, at base. That's our foundation, right? In essence, we are instinctual. And if you think about these things that have been created to, to benefit, or actually there to, I guess, entice our senses. Food products, such as chocolate and all this really tasty stuff. That they've sort of hacked that model of just saying, this is what makes us light up in some way, shape, or form in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's what entices people to want to eat it or buy it or whatever, right? So that's like
someone else has worked out the connection and they know how to hack it.
Yeah. So we need to understand that firstly, without that, cognitive layer, then of course, 100%, we're just going to fucking go for that stuff.
Yeah.
Because instinctual animals, they only know the present moment, right? And what is going to be, good, quote unquote good, or satiating or satisfying in the current moment or not, right? They don't care about what the long-term ramifications of eating McDonald's every day is going to be, right? There's no sense of longevity or long-term survival. It's just like moment by moment survival,
Yeah.
right? Now you add that layer of cognition on top. Now we can think about it, right? We can actually intellectualize and say it's actually bad for us. And this is like a counterbalance. Like it's actually like contradictory in a sense that intellectually we want to live like a long, thriving, healthy life, right? We want that. But instinctually, we just want to be, nourished, like, or satiated or satisfied at every single moment. And this like dynamic, it's not just for food or anything like that. It's like any sort of anything that sort of elicits a positive like dopamine spike for us.
Yeah.
Like mindlessly watching television or sports or being on the social media all the time or just mindless like stimulus.
Yeah. And it even goes further to like, having a relationship with someone that isn't going to be good for you long term.
Yeah.
Right. But doing it because in the moments, in the moments that you have, they're fun. But then there's all these other moments that lead down this other path. Right. And you're right. Like we're instinctual beings at the base of it. And we go for things that like one, we try to survive generally and avoid discomfort.
That's right.
Right. And lots of things in the moment help us to do those things.
Yeah.
Right. It's like food, need to eat it, need to survive. And it's like, well, I like this better, or it's easy to eat this food rather than that food. I can just go get this instead of that. And all those things stack on top of each other. And then there's also, you're talking about intellectualizing things. There's also a difference between knowing things and understanding. And that's what that reflection process does. And I feel like we talk about it like every time, but it's so important, man. The reflection mechanism, right? And that's why the past is important as well, right? In order to guide us in the present towards a better future. It's that there's like, if you reflect on knowledge that you gain, right? We have knowledge. We know things because of knowledge that we've gained somehow. Someone's told us something, we've experienced something, we've read something, heard something. So you can hear that McDonald's is bad for you, right? And that I shouldn't eat it. You know that now, but you still eat it, right? And it's because I feel that you haven't taken the time to stop and think about and understand why that is something that you should be taking time to reflect on and then making decisions based on that reflection and what it means to you. Like, right? Because if you take the time to understand that junk food's bad for you and that if you keep eating it, your body is going to get to a certain point, possibly that, is really going to affect your life in a poor way. You're going to live less. The time you have here, you're actually going to, have health problems, or you're not going to be able to do other things that you like. Like if you get too heavy, you might not be able to play sports you like. You might have kids, you can't run around with them, things like that. If you start to actually take the time to understand why this knowledge that has been shared with you is or can potentially affect you, and if that's going to take you down the road of where you want to be or not, you're not going to do anything with it. Right? It's that taking that time to understand it that can get you to make a better decision and to do the thing that's actually going to get you close to where you want to be. And that's why I think there's like, people that they're like, I want to be healthy. It's just because you think that's a good idea, but like, why is that important to you?
Yeah.
You got to take the time to work that out. Because if you're like, I want to be around longer for my kids, right? Then you might actually make a different decision and be like, if I keep eating this way, I'm potentially taking years off my life, or the time that I'm here isn't going to be that great anyway, the shorter time that I might have. So maybe I shouldn't eat that all the time.
Yeah.
And I should start to eat better. And then you likely will eat better because you've taken the time to work out why that's important to you. And you understand why all that shit that people are spitting at you has actual value. And then when you actually value it, you'll do something about it.
Yeah. And I think, look, even like everything that we've talked to this point, there is like a general ideal that life firstly should be, X amount of years long, and we should want to live a long life, right? And this is just like, it's general. And this is what we're sort of brought into, modern society to believe. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not saying one way or another. All I'm saying is these conversations are based on that notion, right? But who's to say, again, the person who, again, doesn't care about what is said about what's good or not for them, wants to simply live according to their, instinctual desires,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, there are people that that are essentially like they're hedonistic in some way, right? Like they like to go out and smoke and drink and booze and eat and live that live fast, die young sort of thing. It's like, man, if that's actually what you want, do it. And that's another thing we say all the time. It's like, do what you want to do, just as long as you're not hurting other people. But if you've actually taken the time to work out that, it's important to me to have a good time and to eat all these things and experience that because I love food, I love boozing, I love hanging out with those people. And I prefer to do that rather than live, a longer life eating vegetables that I hate and blah, 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 right? Then you can do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't, right? But you actually have to take the time to work that out.
That's right.
And that's the difference, right? It's like people that, in sports and stuff that they're doping or they take anabolics and things, right? There's like a negative connotation towards it. But there are athletes who have told themselves they're like, the glory is important to them. Being the absolute best is what's important to them at that sport or that thing that they do, right? And this is an avenue they have to get there. And yes, there may be some detrimental effects, but people look themselves in the mirror and make that choice. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you do,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong one way or another, but you have to take that. You have to give it that time, go through that process, work out what's actually important to you.
Yeah.
And then you'll actually you'll be happy with your decisions in the future. And if things don't even turn out like you made that choice, it was a conscious choice, not an automatic choice, just on something that you heard and you think you should be doing, and then not really doing it in full effect either.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing. Like we come back to this regularly, and it's just about like this level of clarity that you have to come to for yourself, right? In what direction you want to go. Like if you are going to, walk down one path or the other, right? In a extreme dogmatic fashion, just know that you can't have one foot in either, in either boat. It is going to be one way or the other.
Yeah.
Whichever way that you choose to lean, and that's a conscious choice, as you said, right? But even like just coming back to like this general view of this want for longevity and a good, healthy lifestyle and life, a long life. These things, it comes down to, again, like this intellectual layer is very important. It is our opportunity to apply a pause in between, an instinctual reaction and how we respond. We talk about that a lot as well, in terms of, again, this example of junk food. It's delicious and, it makes us feel good for, 5-10 minutes until it doesn't, but we have a choice, and that is an intellectual choice, right? And the strength of how we use this, this power of choice is also something that is built and it's conditioned and it's cultivated. So it's going to be different for every single person as well, because everyone experiences life differently, right? We talk about that, and however that is, I guess, nourished and cultivated throughout your life is going to determine your ability to be able to turn away from things that aren't necessarily something that is going to help you, or in fact is detrimental to you and who you, quote unquote, want to be, I think that's a very important thing, like this to highlight in terms of like these for me are what is meant by when people say, you know, this grit and determination and resilience, right? That is something that is cultivated over time, and it needs to be continually sharpened, you know? Even as someone who is like externally, I'm very passive externally, right? But these, you know, attributes are still something that I, you know, sharpen on a daily basis, because you need this, you know, this solidity inside yourself to be able to navigate through, because it's, you know, what, however you want to, you know, put it, like life is a difficult endeavor.
Yeah, things get hard.
It is a difficult
No matter who
endeavor,
you are, things get hard.
right? And for you to be able to, you know, want to have a very clear direction on where you want to go in life and not be dictated by external circumstances, you need the resilience and toughness and grit and resilience, or whatever you want to call it, inside yourself to be able to do that and continue to walk, right?
For sure. And those attributes are what you need once you commit to something. And we can talk about that another time because it's a whole other gamut, right? But it's like when you actually take the time to work out what's important to you and decide what it is that you want based on what is really important to you instead of things you're just told, then you can commit to something, right? But when you make that commitment, what's important to understand, I feel, is knowing that you're going to need those qualities that you were just explaining. You know, resilience, grit, perseverance, persistence. Because, as you said, things get hard, man. Things get hard.
And like the example that you're putting out, right, is sometimes, actually, you know, I could probably say that most of the time, these qualities are going to be the difference between whether you know, say, I know, or you do it at every single moment, you know?
For sure, man. For sure. And I think that's a really good place to leave it, because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. All right, cool. So, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, bro?
Yep. Easiest place to find me is just on Instagram. So Shaun_Coop, SHAUN_COOP. You can just hit me up there and we can hang out there. How about you, bro?
Yeah, just on my website, findingspace.co. Also on my socials, Facebook and Instagram is at findingspace.co. You can email Shaun and I as well through the Hustle and Flow podcast at Gmail. If you got any questions about today's episode, any past episodes, want to give us some feedback, or if you'd like to come on as a guest, just send us an email and say good day.
For sure. And as always, guys, a humble request. If you got something out of this conversation, a little nugget, something that, you know, perhaps resonated with you and you think might resonate with someone else, please just share it out with one other person, a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone you think would benefit by listening to this conversation as well. It's how we grow the podcast and helps us to get these conversations into more ears. So until next time, guys.
See you guys.